And we're going to just set it up. We are live.
Yeah.
And, because of the echo, I also had to switch on, like put the windows on. So now I see some birds are going to really start,
Yeah.
chirping very loudly. So that would be our background music, which is good. Good morning, everybody. We are with our 82nd mom. How exciting! Slowly, I just don't want these 100 interviews to end. Now I'm getting a little jittery. I've got so used to bringing moms, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm reaching the 100 mom mark soon, and then this part will be over, and the book part will start going, and I will miss it so much. And I know so many of you will who keep tuning in, even if you don't comment, you tune in and you keep saying, Lucy's here. Lucy is here to say hello to us in the morning. Hi, Lucy. Good to see you. We have a beautiful mom again. I mean, mom after mom after mom. Some beautiful moms are coming up, and we have Beata today. I am so fascinated with what she does. I'm just so fascinated with the way she has lived her life and brought about change, and the way she's moved forward in her career and made so much change around her. Beata, welcome to the book. And you're my 82nd mom. And I always say moms who live their story tells their story the best. So please go ahead, introduce yourself. Who's Beata? What her journey is, and then we'll take the questions as and when we move forward.
Sure. Hi, Shika. So great to see you and all of you watching. Um, Geez, my story. It's so convoluted, I wouldn't know where to start. But I guess a big part of my story is that I remember being 7 and wanting to be a mum. Like I had this desire to be a mum and to be a really good mum when I was really little. And I think it was fueled a bit by the way that I was parented, and I could see things that I wanted to do differently, and I could see things that I wanted to repeat. And it's not that I wanted to be a mum right there and then, but I just knew that I wanted to be a mum. And
Right.
from that time, I've lived in 4 countries, 20 places, including a train carriage and a shed and a normal house and a unit. So really convoluted story. I've had a career. I homeschooled my 2 sons, and now I work with other mums. So yeah, it's life's an adventure, isn't it? And it's just, which bit do you focus on in this interview?
You just focus. I can keep sitting here and listening to whatever you want to share with the world, because everything is inspiring, right? When you get an inspiring mom, her journey is inspiring. And what I liked about you when I was talking to you was that it started at such a young age for you. It started when you were so young that you decided. And what I totally was fascinated, and I want you to talk to everybody about it, was you said that you saw patterns. You could figure out at a very young age, if this happened behavior wise, this will happen. So you were into wanting to do the behavioral part that you're an expert of today, even when you were 7 year old, as if you were meant to do that, and you could figure it out at a very young age. And you said some fascinating of incidences, so we should talk about that for sure, that how it started when
Sure.
you were young, and how even in school you could figure out that you know the most fascinating thing I thought was when you said that I knew the paper would be the way the teacher is. Like, this is a teacher, so she would put a paper like that. So I cracked it because I just knew her behavior and what she would choose and how it will go. So just let's talk about that and tell people about that. So that's fascinating.
Sure. Yeah, so there was, I guess, yeah, I must have always been an observer of humans and our nature, because I remember being really young at school, and when I was 6, I think I entered school when I was 6. And I remember seeing how the teacher was explaining the work to the kids. And I
Yeah.
remember sitting there going, those kids are never going to get it. Like my friends are never going to get it when you explain it like that. So I actually wanted to get up in front and say, no, 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 let me explain it in a way that they can understand. Right. So that was the first memory I had, or I have, of seeing things through a child's eyes. And I think from that moment, I wanted to be like an advocate for children. And then, of course, I used that skill in my later years through high school and uni to what you referred to, where I could almost tune into the teacher and their personality and know what questions they would ask in the exam papers.
Yeah.
So I did really well at school because I knew exactly what to study. I could see what the teacher was focusing on and what they thought was important. So I didn't have to study the whole book. I just had to study that bit. Yeah, so that was my, I guess, realization that I had some insight into how the human mind works and how there's this disconnect between the adults and the kids. And I also noticed it in my family, this disconnect, the patterns that my parents were repeating that they couldn't see in themselves, but I could see them so clearly at such a young age. And of course, now that I'm an adult, I know that we all do that. I have patterns that I repeat that my kids point out in me.
Right.
But because of my experience, I know to listen to them, and I actually step back and go, oh, okay, yes, maybe I do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have them, and we don't see them in ourselves, right?
Yeah, and my older one, he's going through a unit, which I'm so fascinated with, and it says understanding of life. Understanding of life comes from no, it's not understanding. It is appreciation of life comes from understanding of patterns around us. You know,
Mm,
this unit. And when I read it, I was like, wow, you're really such a fascinating because I've always been very fascinated with behavioral stuff, though I'm not as in aligned with it as you were. But I'm just very curious. I'm a very curious. I've always been a very curious child and a very curious human being even today. So when I read that, the first thing came to my mind was, yeah, I mean, if you, and then I coincidentally spoke to you just after a few days, and you spoke to me about the fact that there's a repetitive pattern that happens in our behavior, and we just keep doing that. And once you start understanding it, you start understanding the human being clearly, and often predict what's coming up next.
yeah,
If this is happening, this is happening, and it's no out of judgment. It's just a repetition that we ourselves sometimes maybe get stuck in and we don't realize it, and then we just repeat it, or we like it as a comfort zone. I don't know, you're an expert on that. I don't know whether it's the comfort zone that makes us keep repeating this pattern, or the lack of realization that we're repeating the pattern and hence the result. So I was so fascinated when you said I was a horrible student, Beata, in school. I think I was meant to be homeschooled because I flunked from class 1 to class 10 every year in school. I just couldn't. And I was excelling in art, I was excelling in dance, I was excelling everywhere. But like academics and me were just like, Indian schooling at that time, even now it is, but it was a little hard, right? It was very hard growing up. I wish I knew the pattern bit at that time. I wish somebody told me, just look at the pattern, at least you'll clear the exam, because that's a
yeah.
beautiful insight. That's a beautiful insight. So from there, how did you move forward and your fascination? Let's talk about that and how you ended up being in obstetrician's office to start working.
Well, it's interesting because the moment you said, "How did you move forward?"
Yeah.
I see things visually, and I think I don't know that I moved forward. I moved, we move in cycles. It's a
Right.
pattern, and hopefully the cycle that we move in, hopefully we can create a pattern that helps us move in a upward spiral as opposed to a downward spiral or going around in circles. So
Right.
yeah, our patterns are our patterns are pretty much determined. I now know from the learning that I've done, they're determined when we're really young, when we're less than 5 or 6 years old.
Right.
And it is safety, it is security that keeps us there, because it's in those ages, in those first 5 or 6 years, that we decide what's the safest way for us to be in the world,
Right.
right? And then we just keep repeating that unless we consciously do something to change it, to move upwards rather than going around in the same cycle. So when you say, how did I move forward? Well, I didn't. I went around in circles many, many times. I did school, I did uni. I I didn't really follow my passion till quite late in life, truly, truly. So I moved into being a behavioral optometrist after finishing school because it was kind of the closest thing to my passion, which was working with people and creating that connection between adults and children.
Right.
So that's what I really wanted to do. But when I was 18 or 19, that wasn't a profession, parent coaching or mentoring or being an advocate for children or an education consultant. Those things just didn't exist. So behavioral optometry was kind of the closest thing that I found that that allowed me to work with children who were maybe having some learning difficulties or some struggles developmentally, and bring them up to a level where they could function and where they could gain confidence that they have the power to change, that they have the ability to move on that upward spiral in life.
Right.
But the thing that happened with that was that I was working with the children, and from my own experience, having my own kids, if there was a struggle with my kids and I took them to a professional to fix them, to make them better, it actually wouldn't have much of an effect because the person is working with the kids and I'm spending most of the time with them. Right. So I could really see that this thing of that how my patterns were reflecting in my kids.
Yeah.
So I went on a big journey of really self-discovery, observing. I was still observing other people, but eventually I went, hang on, it's all good to look at other people and say, oh, look at all what these people are doing, right? And then I turned the mirror onto myself and realized that, oh yeah, I'm one of those people and I'm doing exactly the same things.
Right.
So I spent a lot of years really looking at myself. And the thing that I noticed was that the more I looked at myself and the more I recognized my patterns and which the ones that were keeping me in those cycles, my children benefited by default. So it was almost like my growth caused them to grow, and I didn't have to do anything. So they were homeschooled, so they were, of course, in my space a lot of the time, or were together a lot of the time. But it's not that I was teaching them this stuff.
Right.
It's like they absorb it through osmosis. So that's really what I realized, that when the adults grow, when the teachers, the parents, the educators can look at themselves and grow within themselves,
Right.
then that reflects in our children. So when we can take that time and spend it on ourselves, because I did the thing that most mums do. Probably for the first 10 years of my children's lives, my entire focus was on them, doing things for them, making sure they're okay, making sure that I can provide opportunities, and all we've had a conversation about the guilt and the uncertainty that we feel, thinking, am I doing the best? Am I doing it right? What if I did it this way? Would they be better off? Am I damaging my children's future? All those questions were there for 10 years. And then I just decided, okay, let's just stop. I'm just going to work on myself. I'm going to just take a bit of time out, take the focus off them, put it on myself for a year or two, and and they grew. So it was really interesting how they suddenly blossomed and really became so aware, and their conversation level it wasn't like this, it was like this. All of a sudden they were growing, and all of a sudden they went through this period of rapid growth, both physically but also mentally and emotionally. Yeah, so that's been an amazing journey, as every mum's journey is.
Oh yes.
You know, we
Every mom's
we
journey.
grow with them.
Yes, and just like as curious you were on the behavioral part, my project, I've been very curious actually from a very young age since I'm a photographer about what is this self-image that comes like, and that's why I've ended up doing this project. It's as if I was being prepared to come and do a project like this, and I don't know whether these are gifts I must say, because I want to use a positive word around it. But the gift of this whole self-image that we have the minute we become mom, because first I was not a mom and I was seeing it with every mom. And then when I became a mom, it came and settled inside of me. And this whole
Yeah.
thing about guilt is, I just feel that this is so common. Like, you can speak to mothers, and when you start speaking to mothers, they know exactly what you're talking about. Because all of them go through that. And I wonder when in our times, or how does this happen? Like, how did this happen about this whole guilt?
Mm.
What generation actually turned it? What are, like, I'm very curious that what happened in the history that this came onto the moms, you know. I'm
Mm.
sure there was a generation who did not feel these pressures. There would be, I don't know, it was 5 generations before, it was 10 generations before, it was 11 to 12 generations, but there was must be a generation who was more aligned of knowing what they were doing, in spite of not having the freedom that women today have, in spite of having so much restrictions, and even lifespans were shorter. I believe the lifespan is like we have more time today, and we have more to do, and the technology is more there. But I don't know when it happened, because I've been telling people that this is an ancient pulse. This mother pulse is an ancient pulse, and it's a pulse that was developed. It was I think developed first. The whole question of chicken or the hen, but the pulse was definitely developed first. The whole work, whoever's the creator, worked first on this mother pulse. I'm 100% sure of that, because the dinosaur had a mom, and even she knew that how to protect her young one to the predators. So this pulse was like it's been there, Beata, right? And
Yeah.
the pulse knew exactly what to do without so much pressure and so much stuff. Even
Mm.
dinosaurs knew, like even the tribals knew, and even when tribals didn't have probably any kind of formal stuff where they had to abide, everybody knew, and somewhere down the lane, as we grew, this became like today is the most common thing: the guilt, the bad self
Yeah.
image, the comparison, not knowing what to do with your children, always doubting it. So, what do you have to say about that? Because I'm very curious. I'm going to go down this lane, and I just want to find out what happened that
Mm.
this all got upside down, and this is the most common thing, and mothers are now feeling so overwhelmed with everything.
It's interesting that you should ask that, because yesterday I finally sat down and wrote the first bit of my book. It's been here, it's been created for probably a couple 2 or 3 years, but I sat down and I just intuitively just started writing. And this is actually the topic that came as the introduction. And what I feel it is that we've lost touch with our inner knowing. So the moment there was multiple sources of advice,
Right,
the moment we have a choice, uncertainty builds, right? Because the moment we have to make a choice, we start to wonder, what if we had chosen the other path?
right,
So in tribal societies, there was that it didn't even come into it. For animals, it doesn't come into it. You have a baby and you just do what feels true in your heart. But then these times came, and I don't know when it would have been, when what feels true for the mum suddenly is considered maybe not the best thing to do. So a mum might feel that she would love to have her baby at home until they're 7, but the system says that the best thing to do is to send them to preschool or kindergarten when they're 3 or 4. And immediately there's this disconnect, there's this dissonance
right,
of between nature, what's natural for us,
right,
and what we're being told. For example, my mum, I was born in a communist country, and what I learned only in the last 10 years is that when I was born, babies were immediately taken away from the mother and put into a room, and then brought to the mum for feeding 5 times a day at certain times for 15 minutes. And that was it, right? And if the baby didn't drink in that time, too bad, you miss out. So, something like that coming in that goes totally against the mother's instinct,
absolutely.
I think, would create that. So that's one thing. The other thing that I think is happening is that there's an expectation of what a child, what makes a person successful in life, right? So the bit that I wrote that actually came out in a course, I was just speaking in a course that I just completed, and it suddenly just came out of me saying, well, you're given a child, it's like you're given a seed, right? And it could be, say, a tomato seed. But if you think that cucumbers in this world are going to be more successful than tomatoes, you're going to be trying to nurture it like a cucumber seed, but it's never going to be a successful cucumber. So this idea that we have a belief that certain people in our society are successful, and then people who have different interests, for example, to use your example, there's this, I don't know how it is in your country, but in Australia, there's this belief, a misconception that if you're into art, you can't possibly make a living. So you're better off learning about maths and science and spelling and all of that. So if a child comes in who's an artist, they're immediately being turned into something else. So again, going against our natural desires, our natural gifts, and what feels natural for us as mothers, I think, is what creates that guilt and the uncertainty. But working with nature is how we thrive. So I think that's what we need to go back to, really.
Absolutely. And what you talked about, maths and science, was all. It's getting better. It's getting better because by the time I reached 18, I could become a photographer. But that all goes back to the parenting, because my father said yes to everything I wanted to do. I was part of a very big joint family. My mother was not there with me since 6 years of age, because she was schizophrenic and she was taken away because she was violent. And my struggle for academics was more of my inner struggle, that I was struggling because of whatever situations, and I always wanted to be this. Not wanted to be. I think I was always this so-called good girl who never wanted to question what's happening and just wanted to embrace whatever was happening to her and just keep moving forward. But externally, this pressure of academics just didn't work for me. And then I was surrounded by children who were doing very well, right? In a joint family who were doing extremely well, so-called scholar batches who used to get batches for being 90 percenters. So being amongst them, when I used to come back, and I didn't want to do my homework, and like my aunt would always ask me, she's like, my daughters always get homework. How come you don't get homework? And I would just come up with some excuse, and something or the other was happening, which we laugh about now. But as a child, I was just trying to avoid all this. And I think at some point in time, my father realized that my older brother, who was already in his teens, and he realized that I was still younger. I was 8 years old or 9 years old, and I needed to be brought out from it, because some psychologists made a passing comment that he's grown up. Probably you've lost a lot of time with him, and working with him now in his 15 or 16 would be much tougher than working with this girl at the age of 8 or 9. So at least start working with her. And that's the time my dad decided to not focus on work and whatever was needed. So I was raised, and why I'm putting this question ahead is because I was raised by more yes. Like, I have not heard my father saying no. Everything I wanted to do, I was not very good at English. Kids would make fun of me. My father's like, yes, let's do it. Whatever was it, yes, let's do it. Yes, do it. I became India's first baby and child photographer when photography, women were not getting into photography in this country at the age of 18, especially as a career, because there was no career in photography. And my dad said yes, and he ended up doing, helping me with the course that was so expensive. But I've been raised with the yes, and I kept moving forward. And I also was raised with communication with my father. Every day at night, I would sit with him and tell him whatever happened. You know, whether I was even hanging around with my friends who were into drugs, I could come and tell him that. I could tell him that this is what's happening. And because I was so honest with him, I never got into any of these things, because I knew I have to go back to my father and speak to him about it. And my father, honestly, being in India, in a city, Delhi, unsafe, partying in a joint family where none of the girls partied, I would party at 2 o'clock and come back. And I'm sure today when I look back, it was a tough thing for my dad to keep standing and saying, let her grow, let her leave. And honestly, today I can say that I'm the most successful relationship building wise, confidence wise out of all of them because of the yeses my father said to me. Contrary, now I'm saying no to my son, to to a lot of things, and I keep going back to my father like, how did you say so much yes? And I'm so confused as a parent today. That is the yes the right parenting because I did it, and my husband says just because you got yeses and you succeeded doesn't mean he'll get all the yeses and he'll succeed. So there's so much confusion. I wanted to talk to you about that.
Mm.
So
Yeah, well, the way that I see it, what I worked out in my journey, and what I've seen from other families, because I've watched a lot of kids grow up. So even though I've moved around a lot, I did stay in one place in a fairly small town for 10 years while my kids were growing up. And we homeschooled, and we had a really big community. So I have seen a lot of kids go from that, 5 to 8 year old all the way through to 15, 18, now 19, 20-year-old. And even before that, when I was working with children with learning difficulties as a behavioral optometrist, I saw how they progressed. And really, what I noticed was that it's about balance. So life is like walking a tightrope.
right.
And we're always falling off. We're always, on that teetering. And it's about noticing when we're starting to go too far in one direction and then coming back. So for me, it's a balance between putting in the structure, like the riverbanks, and allowing freedom within that. And often, as a rule, what I notice is that dads have wider riverbanks, so their structure is this wide, while mums, because of our natural instinct to protect, we put slightly narrower boundaries in because we fear for our children, right? But even within that, allowing some freedom within that, I noticed that I think that what happened when I started to focus on myself, I widened my children's riverbanks because my focus wasn't so much on them, and that allowed them to grow out sideways. And it's interesting because I walk on the beach every day and I see the mums and dads with kids. And what I often see is when there's a mum at the beach with a child, there's the child and there's the mum, right? And they're on the edge of the water and the mum's right there. If it's a dad and a child, the child's in the water doing their thing and dad's over here watching,
Yeah.
right? So not always, but I'd say 80% of the time. So it's been interesting for me to notice that. And I actually sometimes stop and talk to the dads and say, so, I love how you can just step back and allow your child to explore and fall in the waves and get washed over, but they're right there if the child gets into trouble. And every dad that I've spoken to says, yeah, if the mum saw it, she would be horrified.
Yeah.
But for dads, somehow they don't have that maternal instinct, right? So I think that the challenge for us mums is to actually get past our discomfort and just allow that little bit more freedom. And it doesn't mean letting our kids drive the bus, because you don't let a 5-year-old, 8-year-old drive a bus. However, you can allow them to just hold the steering wheel and and just be there, and maybe sometimes let go and allow them to learn. Because I noticed that my kids learn a lot when I allow them to make mistakes. It happened just the other day with my 17-year-old. My boy turned 17 yesterday, and there was something that he did where I could see him heading for the crash, for the wall, but and I mentioned it. I said, what do you think about this? There's a risk here. What do you think about that? And he said, oh no, Mum, I've got it under control. And it didn't turn out so great, and he rang me and he said, Mum, you know how mums are always right? Well, the thing that you said was going to happen happened. And I said, look, mums aren't always right. I've just had more experience, and I had to allow you to take the crash so that you can learn now while I'm still here, to pick up the pieces,
Yes.
rather than learning in 20 years time when you lose your house, and you know what I mean. So it's about just navigating that tightrope, I think. It's not about saying yes all the time, it's not about saying no all the time. It's just watching our kids and being aware of our patterns of fear, and making sure that we're really focused on, when I focused on what I wanted to achieve for my kids, rather than my own fears of what could go wrong,
Right.
that's when I think everything shifted. Yeah, letting go of some of the fear.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example about the river that you're saying. And then river always flows, right? It concentrates on
Yeah,
flowing. And stagnation also brings that, if you, because I'm a visual person as well, and then like when you're talking, I'm seeing it visually. And two things that you gifted us in this interview is one, that it's not forward, it's the circle bit, and then spiral up or spiral down. It's that stagnation if it's not a river which flows, right? It needs to
yeah,
flow. It needs to keep flowing, and it needs to, because river is not the same at every, like they say, right? That the
that's
river
right.
if you touch here is not the same. Like there's new water always coming in. What you touch now has already gone ahead, right? In the, if you put your hand in the river, because it's flowing. River is always flowing, and that's a great example because we need to be like rivers. Sometimes we do become like these ponds, and we just become static, and we become restricted within ourselves so much that we are not excited, because river also is exciting,
Yeah,
right? It takes its own
that's
journey,
right.
it's adventurous, it turns and bends and finds and so many things. But the pond is and I think a lot of times we moms just become that, a very close boundary stuff, and we just don't know how to flow out of it. And because we are not flowing out of it, we tend to bring that to our children as well. So no newness is there, the same way of raising, we don't grow, we don't explore. And also we're not very curious, Beata, as mothers.
Yeah,
We need to be curious with ourselves rather than being hard on ourselves. We should be curious. I'm very curious as a mom. That what am I doing? Like if I'm doing a mistake, then what was it? How was I raised? What it is? What worked for me? What didn't? I will go on. I'll go to Beata. I've started a whole mom's project because I'm curious. I'm curious what's happening, and this curiosity is a river because it takes you ahead. It takes you to journeys and makes you realize. And I've had my spiritual breakthroughs. I'm talking about the mother pulse. I'm talking about what's happening, and let's pause and see, have we become ponds, have we become rivers, have we, what's the mother pulse. And I think that curiosity also needs to come as a kid, and it has to be encouraged in our children to be curious. And if that curiosity is encouraged, is when you become a mom or a dad, you become curious rather than becoming that restricted pond. And now this is it. If we don't raise them in this way, they're never going to be anything. And then from this whole flowing breeze and other things, and because you said it so beautifully about the river, I see a forest, a river going through a forest and then going somewhere else, and then starting from the mountains and taking a journey. And that's what we need to do. And that's what I feel, that as mothers, we should take it like that, and not, try to make buildings out of our lives and children, you know.
totally. And it makes life so much more fun, doesn't it?
Oh,
I
yes,
mean, sometimes a river is the rapids, and it's wild, but it'll always get to its end result.
right,
Sometimes it's a little pool, that you do stay in for a while, and um, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, sometimes it has waves,
yes,
and really, if you and it curves. If you don't know what's around the next corner,
right,
yes, it can be scary, but that's the excitement in life.
right,
Well, if you're just in that stagnant pool, yes, it's safe, but it's also boring, and that's when we can get stuck and almost depressed, where we think, oh, life's not as much fun as what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more fun. I thought it was going to be more exciting. And the thing is that it can be, but it's just that when we buy into fear,
yeah,
we keep ourselves safe, but feeling safe isn't, we're not living life, we're not getting the juice.
Right.
There was an analogy that I used because I'm also very visual, just like you, in my program, and that was, the idea of life being a tightrope. And I said, there's a part of us that wants to keep us safe, that tells us that it's safer on the bottom of the canyon, that if we fall off the tightrope, that it's safer down there. We've got broken legs, broken arms, but it's safe, right? Because we can't fall any further. We can't move. So there's this part of us when we buy into fear that makes us function as though we've got broken arms, broken legs, but we're safe.
Right.
And really the thing that makes parenting fun is that curiosity,
Yes.
that wonderment of what challenges will my kids bring me today? What will they come up with? What puzzle do I have to solve?
What will I be on the other side of this journey that I'm taking? It's not only like what our kids are going to be. If we get fascinated with our own selves, then what am I
Yeah,
going to become 20 years after this intense experience of raising these kids, from producing them to
yeah,
raising them? And even if we have Lucy who's our bonus mom, just what will you become? Because she's had her children, and we don't use the word stepmom because we come up with the word bonus mom because we don't like the word
yeah.
stepmom.
Love
Looking
it.
roles. And Lucy is here, and I'm fascinated. She's saying by conversation between two of you and mom. But Lucy is a perfect example of somebody who has been like a river. She still flows like a river, and she still brings. I mean, when I look at her in some of the programs, when I'm always looking at Lucy, and Lucy should know this, that I'm looking at her amongst all the little windows, and I see Lucy standing through and through. Sometimes 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and dancing and doing so many things and participating full out, and then also becoming very curious and raising her hand and asking questions as if she doesn't know at the age of 70 what you're talking about. And she's a very wise person. So that curiosity just keeps refreshing you all the time. That you're more curious, you want to learn more, you want to do more, and that's my children, I think. Yeah. So you know that I have kids at home. I purposely do it because I want to prove that I have kids at home. I let them do it. So, just to, and just out of curiosity again, because I'm going to put this question to you because I'm loving the conversation. When you say it's tightrope, it it makes me it makes me shrink, Beata. When you say that it's like a tightrope, as a mom, when you're talking to me, and because I'm a visual person, it's shrinking me. It's not expanding me. It's not making me feel, um, oh my God, this is amazing, and I want to really walk on the tightrope. I'm like, I definitely don't want to walk on the tightrope, right? So,
Mhm.
what is the other thing that we can say if it's not a tightrope? What I think balance is difficult because also we've been using, and we're trying to feel that it's like a tightrope walking, that if we slip we will fall, and everybody is scared of fall. Not everybody is courageous, and not everybody is happy falling, or not everybody takes the fall with a lot of enthusiasm. So when we say the word balance is like a tightrope walking, yes and no, yes and no, yes and no, it is overwhelming, right? And
Sure.
what do we bring, and what can we bring to the world? And it's not you. I've been hearing this from a very very long time. Balancing is like tightrope walking. If it is tightrope walking, I can definitely not walk on it, Beata. I mean, I'm just like, I'm not an adventurous person. I'm very curious, but I'm not adventurous. Like, tell me to do bungee jumping, I will not do it. Right? Even if I'm tied with it and I know I'm safe, I will not do it. And tightrope walking makes me feel like that. The minute you tell me tightrope walking, I feel I'm on this. I'm not in just a small height, but I feel I'm, crossing the tallest mountains that you can. Between that, I'm walking, and it gives me this feeling in my heart that, oh my God, I'm walking there, and if I fall, I'm going to die. It's not I'm going to break my legs. I'm definitely going to die because of the height I am at. So I'm just curious again to put this forward because you're an expert of behavior. What can we bring that the balance doesn't look like a tightrope walking? It should not look like tightrope walking. It should look like a flow that's easy. How can we bring it to the mothers? What should we tell to the mothers that it feels that balance is possible? Yes and no is possible. Both are possible, and everything is okay. Just
Sure. So what if you imagine instead that it's a log in a forest going across a beautiful calm lake?
Right.
Okay, so what I say to mums, and this is really what I learned from my experience, was yes, it does feel like you're forever correcting the balance. But if I was on a log going across a beautiful lake that's just the perfect temperature, so if I fall off, I go, oh, okay, I've fallen off, I get back on. What's the easiest way to walk across that log? Now, is it looking at the thing you're fearing? Is it looking at the height? Or is it looking ahead to where you want to go?
Right.
And that's what I feel is the single answer to making parenting simple and fun. And that is always looking to where you want to go,
Right.
not looking at all the different people calling out at you going, no, no, don't put your leg there. No, don't put your leg there. No, your kids need to learn maths. No, your kid needs a tutor. You know, if you listen to all that while you're trying to walk across this log, your
Right.
attention is scattered and you will keep falling off.
Yes.
But we all actually have the power and we have the ability to make it really easy. And all we've got to do is look forward,
Right.
look at where is it that we want to go, where is it that we want to get our kids to, and more importantly, where is it that we want to get to? What is it that's in our heart?
Right.
And know that we will fall off. You know, so if you use the tightrope, the analogy I use is all your trusted friends, family, and some people don't have them, especially in today's world. You know, sometimes families are separated. Having a mentor, somebody that can be the safety net,
Right.
so that yes, you're on a tightrope, but you've got a safety net underneath because you will fall off.
Right.
We all do. We can't avoid it, right? It's we're human, and it's okay. And I felt another thing that really made a huge difference in my parenting was that when I fell off, I was very honest and clear with my kids about the fact that I fell off.
Yes. Beautiful. And that's
That was, yeah,
yeah, that's beautiful. And I think that's what we can bring to this interview, that it's okay to tell your children that you're not okay, and
yeah,
and let them know that. And that's how it happened. And I think my older one, who's 8 years old, picked it up when I had that instance of my younger one getting burned, and energy-wise I was
yeah,
gone. And of course the guilt came up because I was talking to a mother when it happened. I was just like this in a conversation, and I rushed because I just heard the scream and I knew it was something bad. And my older one came and told me, "Don't give up." Like, that's what the sentence is. Don't give up. You reached 80 mothers. You should not give up. And I just think uh, he reminds me so much, because I like to take these journeys. And very interesting, you will hear this. A lot of time when he becomes negative about, hey, I'm not the best person, or when children go into that, I always tell him that don't keep repeating it, and you will become what you keep repeating. So if you've like done something, just get up and start saying something else, just do something, and don't just keep repeating to yourself that I am not a nice person, I am not nice, or something like that. I told him just as a passing, not something that I've thought of saying, because I just keep thinking that we keep repeating in our head, and then we start becoming and taking choices towards that. And just few days back, I was being negative about something, and I just kept on saying something again and again, and he just came to me like, "Stop repeating it, Mama. You'll become that." And it just stopped me, and I'm just like, "Yeah, you're right. I should stop saying that." And he comes back to me, and he keeps saying this to me, and he said it twice or thrice because he's caught me saying something which I'm repeating in a negative spiral. And the safety net you're talking about, he's become my safety net now. That like he comes back
yeah,
and tells me that I think you're just, and he also just says it right now. His age, he just says it while playing or something. But I know that he's understanding that my mother is saying something negative and she's repeating something negative, which is not good for her. And she doesn't want me to become that. And he just says, just stop saying that and you'll become that. And that's how the safety net becomes. And the reason why, and Melanie is also here with us, and Melanie has also helped me sometimes in the middle of our conversations when I've had, and she has made me realize, and she knows how excited I get when I have a aha moment. Oh, this is what I was doing, and this is what it is. And My son gives me, you've given me some aha moments here. Melanie is giving me some aha moments. Lucy definitely gives me. Lucy is here. Francis is here. Everybody is here listening to you, Beata. And I just wanted to say that, like the visual of tightrope always, and you've given me a better visual of forest, because forest is scary as well, right? It's always
Mm.
scary to walk in that forest, but I like the log and the little stream more than I like the tightrope, tightrope, because it does give me that feeling that I can't do it, because as a person, I will never walk on a tightrope, right? I will always be, I don't know why I always get this very high mountains and the tightrope people try to do that. The adventurous people who try to walk that tightrope, which is between two mountains, like that's what it gives me like as a moment. So I like what you just said.
And
Yeah, yeah,
it's great that you brought that up, because I think those two things I wanted to say. And one is that it's really important to remember that we're all different. We have different nervous systems, right? And different amounts of the chemicals in our brain tip us from excitement to fear.
right.
That it's just the chemical balance. So often when mums come to me and they want me to give them a formula, they say, what do I need to do for my children? And it's important to know that there is no formula, because it is whatever works for you. So I use the tightrope because it was the photo that came up when I was, doing my slideshow, and when I put in balance, a tightrope came up. That's the only reason I use it. But it's really important to tailor it to what, get the meaning out of it, and then tailor it to yourself. And the second thing I wanted to say was, and it follows on from something you said before, that our kids already have this, right? They have that inner knowing, and they have that inner curiosity. They already know what their comfort level is, and where they can be pushed a little bit towards the edge, and where they just shut down. There's that, and as mums, we know where that level is. So it's not so much that we need to encourage curiosity in our children. It's not so much that we need to encourage them to see patterns, because they already do.
Yes,
The
definitely.
thing is to not shut it down, because what I often find talking to adults is they say, as they go on their own personal development journey or personal growth, and I think you've said it as well, is they say, I knew all of this as a kid, and then adults told me that I was wrong, and then you have to relearn it as an adult. So I think it's just about knowing our kids and knowing ourselves, and knowing where's that comfort zone, where can we be on the edge of our comfort zone, but not outside of it? Because as soon as we go outside of our comfort zone, we go into fear, we go into shutdown. But if we can be on the edge of it, then we're in excitement and anticipation, rather than anxiety and fear. So it's important to know yourself, and to show our children that they already know themselves, and to trust that, and maybe just push them a little bit. Yeah.
And I love it beautifully that you said that, like, that every, I think that's why you always said that work with mothers and everything else will fall in place. Because,
Mm.
the curiosity of knowing yourself, curiosity of where we went wrong, curiosity of is there more, curiosity of what's life all about, all that curiosity actually keeps making us move forward.
Yeah.
And usually upward if we actually take it in the right way and keep going up. And like you said, that every mother's chemical brain, every mother's experience, I've realized in these 81, 82 interviews, everybody's, mother's experience is so different. And that's where the
Mm.
fears come from. Like my fear of tightrope probably would be because I've always been told you're not balanced. You're just like out of the way. When I was a kid, everybody told me that you're just out, look at her, she's just out of control. And my father's, because I had three fathers in the house, right? My joint family. And there were two more dads, families, three families staying together. So everybody's your dad, right? So they would always sometimes, relatives would come, and we were a very close knit family with almost 32 people every weekend because the sisters came back. And so everybody just, when they looked at me, they said, oh, she needs to come in balance, you know. And I always thought that I was expanding more when I was not in balance, because I would find my inner voice telling me, do this, do that. You know, I've headed a poetry movement when I was 22. You know, hanging around with people in the 80s, 90s, 60s, sitting with them and spending time. And I was told that why, like, this is the time you need to be with your friends. Why are you hanging around with 50 plus old people and in poetry? And somebody who never was in studies was actually heading a poetry movement, ended up publishing poetry, writing poetry, and being published in a poetry thing, you know. And then they would be like,
Mm.
photography, baby photography, nobody in this country does baby photography. You don't even have a career, and you're ending up spending so much money. So for me, when I like, it's an individual thing that needs to be understood, that this is an individual, and then that individual becomes a mother. That's the individual that's become a mother. So then she needs to actually, I don't know whether that's the right thing. She needs to take her journey the way she's taken her journey, because she's confident of going that way and succeeding. Or when
Yeah.
again it happens, you get married and then you suddenly are in systems, and then you have this like Gary, who's with you, said there's no united front sometimes, because you
Mm.
are in a certain way, and then there's another system, and then system clashes, right? And both are
Mm.
successful. Like me and my husband, he's walked straight in the way the system has worked for him, and he's successful. I have walked absolutely not straight in all the directions, taken spontaneously, and I'm very successful. So now when we both sit down, we just feel, now what? Like, you know, like, now what? Because we both can't say that I'm like, my work, sometimes it happens, I'm like, my thing worked and we'll be fine. And he's like, even my worked and I'm absolutely fine. And I totally love my husband. I'm like, we only grow, and he's very transformative. He does stuff, but we are totally different when it comes to, and then that's the thing. And then we look at our children and we sometimes see, we don't know homeschooling. And he's like, yeah, I think you're right about homeschooling. And then sometimes I'm like, I think you're right about the system, because this is not working online. Since he's been back in COVID, it's not working. So
Yeah.
what do you do with that? Like, when you come with that, how do you? And I'm purposely putting these questions because a lot of mothers watch this, and this is a real problem. This is a real thing that's happening. Even if everything is
Mm.
perfect, everything is chaotic, and they need to know how to maneuver through that without the guilt. And of
Yeah.
course, all that guilt becomes the bad self image, all that becomes a disease in us, all that starts showing on our face, everything that we accumulate becomes us. And then ultimately, the way I realize, through camera, it starts showing. It starts showing through the camera who we are, and we delete it in nanoseconds. The minute we see that woman, we delete that woman. We don't delete a
Mm.
picture, but we're deleting that woman we don't like in the picture. And that's
Yeah.
this whole project and the beginning of the project that happened, and it's getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah. And I think the answer to that, the answer to, what do we do? This way worked for me, this way worked for my husband. There's these bits I don't like about myself, there's these bits he doesn't like about himself. The answer is there's a being in between you and your husband, and that is the child, right? And it's about looking at what seed is that child. Is it a pumpkin seed?
Yeah,
Is he a carrot seed? Is he an apple seed or pawpaw? And the thing that works for that child might be totally different to what worked for you, might be totally different to what for your husband. So you've actually got a perfect example of two very opposing ways, seemingly opposing, that can lead to a great end result. So that there could be another way, or maybe another million ways
right.
that can lead to the same great result. And the common factor is, can you nurture that seed in the way that that particular seed needs to be nurtured? Rather than trying to turn it into this seed or that seed, can you look at that child and go, what does that child need right now? And I think it's as simple as that.
It's
It's as
beautiful.
simple as that.
That's a beautiful answer, and definitely a gift to me and a gift to many mothers, because I think that's where the answer is, of not only for children, for even mothers, that who are you, like, and I think this book will bring that out when they start to
Yeah.
try to do their pictures, and they try to figure it out who they are and who are you, and just focus on that, and it's a good gift that you've given, that don't try to make your children like you or like them, make them like them, right? Because they, like, as it's of course spiritually said, and we come from a country where this we've grown with this kind of spirituality. India has that. When we're growing up, we are hearing all the time that the children are not yours, they only come
Yeah.
through you, right? But they're not yours, and they have come with their own life force, and they need their own stuff to grow. And we feel that if if we don't do it, they would not become anything. And that's the
Mm.
whole
Yeah.
and they still become, right? They
Oh,
still become,
exactly.
you know like if I've grown up without a mom, like 6 years old, I still become who I have, right? They will become who they will. And this fear that we hear through the news, the fear that we hear in social media, this happens, suicides happen, kids are killing, at teenage picking up guns. These are the very innermost fears, Vyata, that makes us sometimes take decisions for our children, that they should not become that somewhere. And I'm
Yeah.
saying it very openly today. I'm telling you, it's
Mm.
there in our hide, because we are
Mm.
so bombarded by these kinds of news all the time, and we wonder what happened, that the child did what he did. We wonder
Mm.
why, and then we go back and become tough on ourselves, thinking that maybe it's the parenting. And
Mm.
we underestimate the outside influence, we underestimate a lot of things, and we take this whole thing to say that it's us, it's parents, and if we don't do it, they might become that. And that goes inside of us at a very subtle level. I'm telling you, I'm saying it open, but it is at the
Yeah.
subtle level. That's why we are pushing our children, so that they don't become something that we have not liked, the news that we've heard. And it's not always fixing, but we are also operating from that, oh my god, if my child at 13 commits suicide, so now it should not, because they become 13, now we should not say too much, or we should not say this thing, we should become friends, we should not take the charge, we should not do something because they're in their teens. I see that happening around me. And you
Of course.
sometimes know that the child is totally directionless, right? Like, from
Mm.
sometimes you see children and you know that they need direction, but there's so much fear. What if they go away? What if they get into drugs? What if they commit suicide? Or if they don't tell me? Things happen like that around us. That's also the truth. That part is also the truth, apart from the daily confusion and everything. And I've worked with a
Well,
lot
it
of,
is.
and I've
It is,
spoken.
but I feel that we can act, if we focus on the fear,
Right,
we're more likely to create it.
right,
If we focus on what would we love for our children,
right,
then we create that, because even just the energy of it,
right,
so you mentioned that our children come here with a certain life force. They have a passion, they have a gift to bring into the world. Now, if that gift is allowed to unfold, if it's free to unfold, and they're free to be and explore and be curious, and we're focusing on what we would love to create for them and for us, then life is fun, right? When we focus on fear, there's that energy of constriction, and they feel constricted. They feel like they can't live their true purpose, like they can't express their true nature. They start to hate parts of themselves. That flows on to hating other people. And, it goes into the shadow work that Deepak Chopra talks about. All of that, when we hate parts of ourselves and we don't accept parts of ourselves, we project that onto others, and often those types of results, and I don't know, I haven't had personal experience with it, or anyone near me, but from what I've heard from others teaching about this, often those types of results are actually created by the fear, by that feeling of constriction and not being able to express fully, and that self-hatred. So,
right.
I don't know that there is a simple answer, but I do know that if we focus on the joy in life and what we would love to create, then things are more fun. We interact with our kids on a different level. They feel like they can talk to us like you could with your father, and there's more of a chance, more of an opportunity for the good stuff to come in, for someone to create a career around their passion, just like you did.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
it's just, yeah,
Yeah, that's why I purposely put this question out there because I want, like, and I'm glad the answer you gave because this is the answer I was looking for as well. Like, that we have to drop out that whole fear that something will go wrong, right? There will
yeah,
be something that will go wrong, and we have to drop that out of our system. Otherwise, as mothers, because it will show, right? It will show. Like my son told me, stop repeating it and you'll become that, right? Because they can see and they will observe and they will even like as basic as even the fact about money, the way we speak about money to our children, the way we talk to them about it, that I don't know what all we say to them, that this whole pattern of being fixed and having even a money mindset of not being able to enjoy the money or trying to control it too much or trying to make it too important, all that is happening because of the way we are behaving around it. And that's why people like you, Melanie, Francis, all of you, Mike, all the efforts that you're putting is the effort that is needed to bring out this whole thing. That this is important to talk about it more and more and more. And I'm glad Melanie is here, and she has also started the whole conversation about visionary parenting. And you guys are all doing it together, and you're coming in interviews, and Mike is doing it. Very, very important. There is a lot of unsettling thing. And recently, somebody was telling me about social media, and was talking to somebody, and they said, social media is bringing this pressure on mothers to be a certain way. So I was just telling them the same social media is bringing these 100 moms together as well. Why are we blaming the social media? That's the social media that's bringing these 100 moms together and the whole stories of these mothers together as well. We need to stand up and start creating this on the social media so that the authentic content comes out. People have to stop blaming the social media. That's the future. This is the way the world is. We have to change the space of trying to change it and bring authenticity, bring these visions out, bring more of this out, and bombard social media with that and say what you're seeing is not the truth, rather than blaming it and saying you are instilling fear. It's a beautiful platform. Today I know Beata, today I know Melanie, today I know Lucy because of this social media. Why are we not using it to bring more stuff out there and bombarded day and night as a responsible citizen of the social media, that we need to do this and not allow the matching clothes and the matching hairstyle and the matching everything to be all what parenting is all about, or anything, whether it's mothers, whether it's other issues that we are bringing. We need to stand up and use this social media. And I'm determined to do that. I'm determined to do that through this book, that I will make it an honest place and not use or misuse this to make this whole self-image business that is coming up, and that's creating so much pressure. And very easily we are consuming that day and night, in the middle of the night, in the morning, and making that our reality. This is a reality. These 82 moms are real. Beata is real, Melanie is real, Lucy is real. These are real mothers living the real stories, and they are going to come out. So before we wrap up, Beata, what do you think of this whole self-portrait? We'll quickly talk about that, and then we will move on to your dream, and then we can wrap it up. What is
mhm,
Do you see what I see with moms with their self-image shrinking, not posing, not wanting to expand themselves, or being in the pictures or being around children? It's always, let me be behind the camera, let me not be there. And the most disturbing thing for me is the delete, the 1 nanosecond delete that happens the minute they see them. Because I keep telling them, you're not deleting a picture, you're just deleting the woman you don't want to see. What is it that makes you feel that you don't want to see her even for that nanosecond? Or you want to create a big thing around it, that don't put my picture, don't do this, don't use this picture, don't do that. You know, what's or like, do you feel that that happens to many moms that you work with?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think such a big focus on appearing competent. Now we want to appear like we've got it, like we've got our shit together, like like we know what we're doing. And that's what we want to bring out into the world. So when we have that photo taken when our face looks a bit like, even sad or angry, we want to delete it, want to not accept it. And and the thing is that, of course, if we don't acknowledge that that's there, that that's part of us, that becomes the shadow that then, festers and creates the results we don't want. So yes, I totally see it. I've seen way too many photos, including in my family photos without the mum, because the mum's always taking the photos of everybody else, right? There's probably billions of family photos where the mum's not in them because she's the only one that will take the photos. And then if someone does take a photo of her, if the kids end up taking a photo, it's no, you can't use that because I look angry. And of course, it's the fear of judgment, because what if the neighbor or the friend sees a photo where the mum looked angry? Then they will think that I yell at my kids. They will think that I smack my kids. They will think that I'm not competent, that I'm not capable of raising them. And I think it goes one step further, where this is really prominent in the homeschool community, where, as a homeschool mum, you take the entire responsibility for how your kids turn out on yourself.
Right.
So it's very vulnerable, because if your kid doesn't turn out that great, right, everyone's looking at you. And I think that's what happens with the self-image, with the photos. Mums are afraid that if their children don't turn out um, as great as what they would love them to be, that they're going to be blamed for it. I think that's where it comes from.
And also the body changes, right? The body
Oh,
changes.
look, the body is another whole thing, isn't it?
And the
Where,
body changes, and this new
yeah,
woman, to accept her, to be able to see her in the mirror, to be able to acknowledge her that her body has changed, and the fact that we give it all without taking care of ourselves, and we
yeah,
accumulated not only weight, sometimes accumulated stress, accumulated many disappointments. Everything becomes this tight job, because I see it as a photographer. When
yeah,
you're not at ease, you're tight, your jaw is tight. So when
yeah,
I used to go for shoots, I used to make sure that one, I'm not talking to mothers, and second, I just make a whole thing a whole lot of fun. In my shoots, I put the music on. I tell the moms to start jumping on the bed with the children.
yeah,
And they look at me, they're like, really? Like, yeah, I'll just start jumping on the bed with them. And the kids like, she can jump on the bed? I'm like, yes, she can jump on the bed. And then she would jump on the bed and it would fall. And then, just easing that out. The same mom with the same weight, with the same dark circles, with the same bad hair, suddenly starts to shine. And I noticed this,
yeah,
Beata. She starts to shine. And my work is easy because I'm just shooting, because I figured out the
mm,
light, I figured out the natural light. All I need to work is that, and why was my work embraced? Why was my work looked at and said, oh my God, Shikha, what have you shot? And why I was always recommended, never needed marketing, was because I brought that ease in her body language, her smile, and none of them saw what they thought was bad about them, their hair, because all they saw was joy. And that's what made me do this project, because I realized that they were looking for the joy and not what we're so calling. They're looking for this perfect actress looking mothers. No, the joy is missing. And then they start thinking, oh, I'm not looking nice because my weight is more. Oh, I'm not looking nice because of that. And I've seen that those pictures give them confidence, they blow them up, they look at them, and then they want to be more of that when you gift them that
mm,
moment or that thing. And that's what I want to tell to this project. And that's what I feel, there'll be transformation when these 100 moms will go ahead and explore themselves and expand themselves, because I am not going to, when I see it's a limited picture, a picture that's limiting them still and they've not expressed, I will keep working with them. I will keep pushing them to that one page, because I know there's more, there's more, there's more, and there's more. And it's a tough job sitting. I so want to pick up my camera and say, I can see so much more in you, and just start going doing that. But this is a tough part to do, to sit here and let them, like I do it with children, like to let them explore and expand through their self-portraits, and that's how they're going to transform themselves through this process. And I know in 2-3 years I will have all the pictures and all the testimonials and everything right there, where it would be showing that these mothers are shining back again with the same weight, with the same dark circles, and with the same hair, because they're not going to not like stop hating themselves of what they've accumulated. It's so many
Yeah.
years of stuff.
And I
So
think you've touched on something really important there, because our how we look, how we appear to the world radiates from inside of us.
right, right,
Right? You know, if even if you get on the scientific level, we're just little atoms. We're mostly space, and it's actually our energy
right,
that that shows. And I saw that as an optometrist. You know, I looked at people and I thought, what makes a person look youthful? And you can have a person with the most wrinkles you've ever seen, and they appear youthful because they have this energy. Their eyes light up.
right,
They're excited about life, and nobody sees the wrinkles
and nobody sees right.
because you're just looking at the person's energy.
Like that, we have Lucy with us, and I keep talking about her. Look at her, the way she talks, and she's like,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
love, like just love her for her energy, and she's an inspiration, and she's quite an inspiration. Otherwise, and all of you are, and each one of you, the way you're bringing things out, and I want these stories to be out because of that. I want these stories to be out because these are real stories, and we must celebrate them in every possible way, because that's what it is. And I can talk to you, Beata, because I told you I'm very curious. I'm very curious, and I can keep like my curiosity doesn't like end. It becomes even more after this interview. There'll be some gifts that you've given me. It happens to me after every interview, and I take them and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. Now what do I do? So I work on myself with those gifts as well. And your spiral as a gift, your river, the expansion of the river as a gift is a gift to me. So thank you for that. And what about Beata's dream? What is Beata's dream? If we end the conversation there, because the book is called 100 Self Portrait, 100 Dreams. So what is Beata's dream before we wrap up?
I have a really big dream. My big dream is to innovate the way that children are educated.
Right,
That is my passion. You know, it's just something that's so old and ancient, and it's not the way that children are allowed to go through the education journey. I won't even say education system. Their education journey really doesn't serve them, and it doesn't serve the teachers.
right,
So that's my big dream. I speak to lots of teachers, I speak to lots of kids, and 80% of them can see the flaws in how things are done right now, but can't see a way out. So that's my big dream, to really bring that into the world. It's not even about showing it to the world, because the world already knows,
right.
but to really allow that to come out, for children's education to come from within them, and for the teachers to become mentors of their growth journey. Yeah, that's what I would love to see in my lifetime. That shift.
I would love to
Mm,
see that as well, Beata. And
yeah.
I would closely follow you making your dream come true, because you've already on it. I know that you're already on that dream through your programs, through your book, and through just being who you are. And it shows the way you are. It just shows how you're moving forward and where you want to take this from there. So definitely, you have a follower here who will be closely following you behind, and that's me, who's going to really, because I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm still a mom with very young kids, and I have a long way to go to give them some direction, and I can learn it from all of you. And I'm very blessed that I am surrounded by you, Melanie, Francis, all of you keep picking me up as well from time to time, especially Melanie, when she keeps correcting me, don't do that, don't say that, don't do that. So I love having conversations with her as well. And of course Mike, I regularly appreciate him as well. So let's just like, we can talk, but let's just welcome you in the book
Yeah.
and wait for your portrait. We're going to, give you the workbooks and everything, and let you take this journey of self-portrait. And very soon see you. Um, I don't know what the word transform for you, but I am 100% sure it'll take you a step deeper into your journey when you explore it through
I don't doubt it. I can't wait. I love what you're doing, and I think it's just such an amazing project. I love how an idea comes to you and you go with it and you take it to completion. I think that's a very powerful thing and quite a rare thing, really.
Thank you. I'm just reaching there. 82 moms, 83 coming, I think tomorrow, and 84 on Monday. So 85 moms, and the closer it's getting, the more excited I'm getting about it,
Yeah.
because I don't know what's the next step. I don't know what the next step is. So I'm very
I think
excited.
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is, and that's why I'm using the forest visual, because I'm like, I don't know what the next step is, but I know there's a step, and it will just show up the minute I finish this part. The step will show up, and I will reach out to that. But at the moment, I've decided to keep going deeper into the self-portrait and bring that as a tool. So that's the journey that started now. With I'm starting workshops on self-portraits to go deeper and to find not only mothers but other people and figure out what is this whole thing that about self-image. So that journey has started, but this journey is going to end, and allow me to see more steps towards this. So lots of things happening for everybody around me, and just keep an eye and give me the courage to just keep moving forward and not feel I don't think so. The next clue is good one. It's scary. The clues keep falling and it's scary, but I have to just keep picking it up and moving forward. So that's the
Yeah.
decision. That's the decision taken. That the clue will come, no matter how scary it is. I will move forward with it, and that's where we're going to end up. So thank you and welcome to the book, Beata. Don't go off. We had lovely people in our chat. I'm going to go and all of them have written a lot of stuff, and I would reply, and you can see that when you go back.
Beautiful.
And just don't go off live. I'm going off live. Don't go off the Zoom. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Shika.